So the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, TREB, just came out with their latest figures for the month of May. And I thought that there were some really interesting findings. So I wanted to have a conversation with Jason Mercer. He is TREB's Chief Market Analyst and Director of Service Channels. Hi, Jason.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Great. Thanks so much for joining me.
No problem.
So one of the things I noticed in the stats, when I looked at, let's say, the semi-detached homes, it actually, the numbers, I guess I should say the price, the sale price, actually increased by about 0.9% on a month-over-month basis, even though that price is still down from 6.4% from May of 2024. Now, I saw similar findings with the condo market, that the prices were up 0.8% from last month. Are we thinking that with those numbers that we've actually hit the bottom of the market now?
Well, I think when you look at month-over-month figures, there is some seasonality to the market as well. And so certainly as you move into the spring, whether you're in a more of a down market like we've seen over the past year where, as you noted, sales and prices are down relative to what we saw in 2024 and the years before that as well. But nonetheless, you do see market activity pick up. And oftentimes that activity is picking up relative to listings as well. And so you could see, a little bit more market tightness. And so, prices tend to get bid up a little bit more in the spring than they would in other parts of the year.
Now, are your stats showing anything about, because what I feel like I'm seeing on the ground is I feel like the spring market got a little bit delayed. And so now I'm seeing a lot more listings coming out. Are you seeing that at all in the stats?
Yeah, I mean, certainly from a supply perspective, whether you're looking at it on a year-over-year basis or even month to month, the market is very well supplied. And so, whether you're thinking about single-family home types like detached, semi-detached townhomes, but also certainly in the condominium apartment segment, there's a lot more inventory. And so, if you're a buyer active in today's market, you're benefiting from a lot more choice, and that gives you negotiating power on price, and certainly these buyers are also benefiting from lower borrowing costs in comparison to what we saw a year ago. So if all we were talking about is an interest rate story similar to what the main topic of conversation was in 2024, we'd be seeing more transactions today. I think the issue is that there's a little bit of more economic uncertainty with the trade relationship with the United States and how that's unfolded over the last few months. So there's a lot of households that are also taking a bit of a wait-and-see attitude, if you will.
Interesting. Let's talk about months of inventory because it's something you just talked about. So how many months of inventory are you seeing in the housing market versus the condo market? But before you answer that question,
Sure.
Can you explain for our listeners what months of inventory means?
Yeah, months of inventory is just sort of looking at the number of active listings that were on TREB's MLS system at the end of a given reporting period. So in this case, we're talking about May. And then you say, look, if we saw a similar level of sales that we've seen over the past few months, how long would it take to deplete that standing inventory if we saw no more listings come into the marketplace? So it's a little bit abstract. Really what you're looking to see, though, is whether that number is increasing or decreasing over time. If the number is increasing, then that means that the market is experiencing more listings coming online that aren't selling as quickly. And so that gets back to the negotiating power that I was talking about, where if there's a lot of choice in the condo market, for example, then if you can't get a deal done on one property for the price you're looking to pay, you have a higher chance probably of getting a similar deal done on another unit.
Absolutely. And so what are your predictions for the fall market then?
Well, I think a lot of it's going to hinge upon what we see from the trade perspective and how that's going to feed through into the labor market and broader economy. And so, if you think just about the news reports over the last week, there's still quite a bit of uncertainty right now. On the one hand, we have, a huge increase on tariffs on steel and aluminum. And on the other hand, we hear that, there's direct negotiations going on between the Prime Minister and President. One of those stories is more negative, one of those is more positive. I think if we start to see more, positive stories and the light at the end of the tunnel from a trade perspective, then I think people will be more confident in their ability to purchase and pay for a home over the long term, and you could actually see sales pick up.
Right. And can you just explain in terms of what you're seeing in terms of the volume of sales this year compared to what you've seen in other years or over the past 10 years in terms of the actual volume of deals being done?
Yeah. So first off, if you compare the total number of sales in the GTA for May, it was just shy of 6,300. We were over 7,200 in 2024 for the same month. And then on top of that, if you think, sort of further back in sort of, I guess, what you call a quote unquote normal market over the last decade or decade and a half, for May, you generally be approaching more like 10,000 transactions, even higher in some years. And so certainly, interest rates, the impact of higher borrowing costs, higher monthly payments impacted the market over the last number of years. And now we also have the impact of this economic uncertainty as well.
Well, thank you, Jason. Lots of interesting news. I'm not sure whether it's depressing or happy news that you've got to report.
Let's hope for that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I've certainly been telling my buying clients that it's a really good time for them to get out there and buy right now. So thank you so much for that, Jason. It was very interesting.
You're very welcome. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Great. Thanks a lot. That was Jason Mercer, Treb's Chief Market Analyst and Director of Service Channels, just giving us some insight into what's happening into the housing market trends right now. We're going to switch gears and go from housing to healthcare. Did you know that the Ford government has just made it easier for U.S. healthcare professionals to practice in Ontario? We're going to be discussing that on the other side of the break, so please stay with us. It's currently 8:56. You're listening live to Devel Morrison at 640 Toronto.